Chapter 7. The next morning, Goody couldn't help but stare. She watched Wednesday from across the common room, seated alone at one of the long wooden tables, her black dress draped neatly around her as she flipped through the worn pages of her grimoire. The book looked almost identical to Goody's own, which made the whole thing feel even more surreal. Wednesday was the same age as her. The same face, the same eyes. But already, she had a lover. Something Goody herself hadn't even dared imagine. She felt her cheeks flush and looked away, only to find two of the older women nudging her forward. "Go ask her," one of them whispered. "Why me?" Goody hissed back. "She said she's an Addams, didn't she? That means she's your relative. You're the only one she might tolerate." They handed Goody her ink pot and quill, as if pretending to be writing would make the conversation more proper. With a reluctant breath, Goody approached. "Does your family approve of your relationship with that boy?" "Tyler," she asked carefully, her eyes darting down to her paper as she spoke. Wednesday didn't look up. "They haven't met him. Or even heard about him yet." Goody blinked. "Is there something wrong with him? Why haven't you told them?" Wednesday's page-turning slowed, and her shoulders tensed slightly. She was already growing irritated, but before she could say something sharp, Thing, perched on a nearby beam, signed a quick reminder. "She's your ancestor. Be patient." Wednesday took a steadying breath. "Nothing's wrong," she said, voice even. "We just haven't gotten around to it." Goody bit her lip. "Are you worried they might not like him?" Wednesday paused. Her eyes drifted to the side, thoughtful. "No. Quite the opposite," she said flatly. "I'm worried they will like him, and that might scare him off." Goody blinked, confused. Meanwhile, Wednesday noticed something strange on the page in front of her, tiny droplets of ink appearing where there hadn't been any moments earlier. Her eyes shifted across the table to Goody's grimoire, just in time to see more ink drip from Goody's quill. Simultaneously, identical spots of ink bloomed onto Wednesday's own grimoire, staining the edge of a freshly turned page. Her gaze flicked to Goody's quill. Her senses sharpened instantly, the warm glow of lamplight pressed against her skin, the faint scent of candle wax curled in the air, and the slow, deliberate sound of ink tapping onto parchment echoed like a metronome in her skull. The quill hovered in midair, a single drop of ink trembling at the tip before it finally fell, not on Goody's parchment, but also seemingly on Wednesday's book. The same pattern. The same rhythm. Wednesday stilled, her breath quiet. Her fingers hovered just above the fresh blot on the page, her expression unreadable, but inwardly, her mind was already working 3 steps ahead. She turned her eyes toward Goody and said, calmly but deliberately, "Your quill is dripping." Goody's head jerked down, startled. "Oh!" She quickly pulled the quill upright and dabbed the tip with a cloth. But Wednesday's eyes remained on her own book. Now she was certain. The ink hadn't just dripped, it had appeared. At the same time. In the same place. As if the space between their books had folded in on itself. She said nothing more. But beneath her calm surface, Wednesday Addams now carried a new certainty. Whatever happened here, whatever they wrote, changed, or destroyed, would ripple 400 years forward into her time. "Isn't it a bit inappropriate," Goody asked cautiously, "for the two of you to be together without an adult present?" Wednesday looked up for the first time, visibly baffled. "Why would we need one?" That answer left Goody even more confused. "I mean, it's a bit indecent, isn't it? For a girl and boy to be alone." Wednesday opened her mouth, then hesitated. Thing signed something quickly from the rafters again. Different time. Different rules. Wednesday sighed. "Our parents trust us not to do anything reckless." Goody blinked, stunned by how casually she said it. "Oh," she responded softly, tucking her hands in her lap and trying to make sense of the strange, ruleless world her relatives seemed to come from. And from across the room, the women watched in equal parts horror and fascination, scandalized by the calm way the girl in black spoke of boys and trust, as if this were normal. Tyler stepped into the room, fidgeting with the rough seams of his borrowed colonial outfit. The linen shirt was oversized and a little itchy, the brown wool waistcoat sagging slightly off his shoulders. A pair of breeches had been hastily tied at the knees, but he still wore his modern sneakers and socks, an awkward blend of centuries. His usual clothes, like Wednesday's, were being washed. "Are you comfortable?" someone asked dryly without looking up. "It feels kinda baggy," Tyler replied, tugging at the collar. Then he leaned down toward Wednesday and whispered something in her ear. Without missing a beat, she slapped his cheek, not hard, but sharp enough to sting. He grinned. No one else had heard the comment, but a few people glanced up at the sound of the slap. Before they could ask, the door creaked open again and a group of rugged outcast men entered, carrying makeshift spears and hunting gear. "We're heading out." "We need one more," one of them said, eyeing the group. His gaze landed on Tyler. You'll come." Wednesday looked up, her expression flat. "He doesn't know how to hunt. I'll join you instead." The room fell still. Even the fire in the hearth seemed to crackle more softly. "That's not true. I can help," Tyler said, his tone slightly defensive. "No. Just stay here and keep an eye on this." Wednesday handed him her grimoire without ceremony. Tyler frowned, a little stung. "That's harsh. At least let me save face." "You have no face to save," she said without looking at him. "Just stay out of the way and serve orders. That's the only thing you're good for right now." "Ouch!" "I can help with other stuff, Tyler replied, half joking. "Maybe I'll clean the place up." "Please. You can't even clean your own room. And you expect me to believe you clean yours?" Tyler gestured to Thing, perched on a nearby shelf. The disembodied hand raised a few fingers to one side, just enough to confirm Tyler's suspicion. "See?" Tyler said smugly. "I find cleaning utterly beneath me. That's what Thing is for," Wednesday said crisply. "You're right, it's my fault for not having a disembodied hand servant." Thing gave him the finger. "No offense," Tyler said quickly, raising both hands. Thing gave a sideways nod. "None taken." "You just help around here," Wednesday said, standing up and brushing her skirts down. "I'll join the hunt." Tyler sighed and muttered to Thing, "Guess I'll help in the kitchen." "You can cook." Wednesday called over her shoulder. "All you do is microwave instant noodles." "Neither can you." Tyler called back. "Incorrect. I can barbecue over a campfire and build a smokehouse." Tyler clutched his chest theatrically. "Way to make me feel completely useless, Wednesday." "Stop sulking and keep out of trouble," she ordered before disappearing through the door. Silence lingered for a beat. Goody blinked from her seat by the hearth. "She speaks to him like a man." "She is one of the older women muttered, clearly scandalized. The men exchanged uncertain glances. "A woman joining a hunt?" one of them said under his breath. "Bold. Or mad," another replied. "She speaks like a general," an older man observed. "And he, what is he?" "Her servant." "He wants to be, I think," one of the younger men added with a smirk. Goody looked from the door to Tyler, still clutching the grimoire awkwardly. "You should stay back," one of the outcast men said, adjusting the worn leather strap of his crossbow. "Just follow and try not to get in the way." Wednesday didn't respond. She strode past him, grabbed a coil of rope, a knife, and a few sticks from the supply pile, and vanished into the woods without so much as a glance. "Where is she going?" someone muttered. "Let her leave, she'll only store us down." Their words trailed behind her, irrelevant. In the forest, sunlight streamed through a canopy of young green leaves. The scent of damp earth, wildflowers, and distant pine clung to the breeze. Wednesday moved like shadow, silent among the ferns and moss-covered roots. And spotted deer tracks. Within an hour later into her tracking, she spotted a young deer grazing in a clearing. She crouched, strung her makeshift bow, and released an arrow. It struck cleanly through the ribs. The deer stumbled, collapsed. Wednesday dragged the body to a thick patch of undergrowth and slit one of its legs, letting blood drip into the leaves. Then she strung a simple snare trap nearby, setting it with a tension-triggered mechanism made from rope and sharpened stakes. She smeared the deer's blood across the trail to lure something bigger. And then she waited. Elsewhere, the werewolves were still tracking deer, shouting across trees and rustling up the brush like a pack of hounds. They worked together, loud, fast, primal. Wednesday didn't chase. She let the predator come to her. A low snarl shattered the silence. Then, snap. The trap had triggered. She moved in without hesitation and found a mountain lion thrashing, one leg caught in the snare. Its eyes locked with hers, wild and desperate. It lunged, but Wednesday was already moving, knife flashing, boots skidding across the dirt. She drove the blade into its throat and held firm as its weight slumped against her. The forest went quiet. Minutes later, the werewolves arrived, breathless and panting. They skidded to a halt at the sight of her, Wednesday, perched atop the bloodied mountain lion, blood splattered on her calm face. "You were saying," she said flatly. She stood and dusted off her skirt. "Get the deer. We're wasting daylight." They scrambled to obey. Back at the hideout, a cluster of lean-tos and a smokehouse tucked behind trees, Wednesday took over again. With Thing assisting like a surgeon's hand, she strung up both animals and began butchering with ruthless precision. She sliced the deer's stomach open, letting green pulp and half-digested plants spill into a bucket. Without flinching, she dipped her finger into the mess and tasted it. "Delicious," she said. One of the outcasts gagged audibly. "How did she do that?" someone whispered. "I've never seen anything like it." "She's insane," another murmured. Goody stood among the crowd in stunned silence. Tyler approached awkwardly, watching as she separated hide from muscle, like she'd done it 100 times. "You've got blood on your cheek," he offered. "Might want to clean up?" She raised an eyebrow, then nodded, handing him the knife. "You clean." "I'll wash." Thing gave Tyler a smirk-like wave. "She just caught a predator and a deer," one of the men finally said, still stunned. "She skinned them both before we even got our second arrow off. And she still looks bored," someone added. Wednesday passed by them again, calm and unbothered, already stripping sinew for thread. "What are you all standing around for? Hang the hides, salt the meat, or go back into the woods and try not to embarrass yourselves." The group moved quickly. Tyler glanced at her again as she rinsed off the blood, then shook his head with a low whistle. "Alpha," he muttered. Thing gave him a thumbs up. After the last of the meat was strung up in the smokehouse, thick strips of flesh hanging like grim curtains, Wednesday dusted the dried blood from her hands and turned away, her expression blank, but her nose faintly wrinkled. She felt disgusting. The scent of raw meat clung to her like a second skin. She made her way to the small wooden rack by the hearth, where her black dress, washed earlier in near boiling water with ash and mint, was now dry and stiff. As she reached for it, footsteps approached. Tyler, with Thing perched lazily on his shoulder, appeared out of the fog of smoke and steam. He carried his own bundle of colonial clothes, freshly aired and folded. Wednesday raised a brow. "Uncomfortable?" "Very," Tyler said. She slung the dress over one arm and turned to leave. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Swimming," she replied. "The hunt drenched me in sweat and the innards of 2 species. I refuse to sleep smelling like a dissection tray." Tyler hesitated, then followed. "You think people in the 1600s even knew how to bathe properly?" Wednesday didn't look back. "I'd rather not find out." The river curved through the woods like a vein of silver under the pale spring sun. Hidden by trees, they found a deep, secluded bend surrounded by mossy stones. The kind of place where something might watch you from the water or beneath it. Wednesday peeled off her colonial layers behind a thicket of reeds and stepped into the shallows wearing her dark modern undergarments, lace-trimmed, elegant, and severely practical. Tyler, less shy than he let on, stripped to his boxers and stepped in after her with a shiver. Thing stationed himself on a boulder, fingers crossed, his version of standing guard. The water was cold, sharp as pins against the skin. But Wednesday welcomed it. She crouched and opened a small cloth sachet she'd tucked into her dress, dried rosemary, a sprig of lavender, and crushed wood ash. She sprinkled it over the surface, letting it float and dissolve around her before swirling the herbs with her hands. "What is that?" Tyler asked, watching her. "My version of shampoo. Rosemary for the scalp, lavender to mask the scent of rot, and wood ash because I ran out of lye soap." She undid her braids, her soaked black hair falling past her shoulders like ink sliding down porcelain. Tyler blinked, caught off guard by the stark beauty of her bare face and hair, untamed, loose, otherworldly. "You look hot. With your hair down, I mean." Wednesday looked at him flatly. "You're embarrassing yourself." "I said it respectfully." "Noted." She tilted her head back and submerged fully, letting the water drape over her like a second veil. When she surfaced, Tyler's eyes were still on her. He wasn't exactly built like a soldier, but there was strength in his frame, sinewy, lean. His forearms flexed subtly as he steadied himself on a rock. She noted this without reacting. Clinical curiosity, nothing more. He stared back. "Is it just me, or is your skin even paler than before?" "That's what happens when you don't worship the sun." She splashed water toward him, sending ripples across his chest. Tyler laughed, quiet, surprised, then splashed back. She smirked, almost imperceptibly. They lingered in the water longer than intended, trading silence and glances. Wednesday washed her scalp carefully, using a sharpened comb made from bone to detangle her hair while the herbal rinse did its work. The scent was faint, earthy, and medicinal. They eventually climbed out and stretched across the rocks, letting the sun dry their skin and undergarments. Thing handed them their folded colonial clothes like a disgruntled valet. As Wednesday and Tyler made their way back through the woods, the air thickened with mist and wood smoke. The sun dipped low behind the hills, casting long shadows between the trees. Wednesday walked with quiet purpose, her black dress damp in places, her bare fingers swiftly weaving her hair back into twin braids. Each strand twisted into place like a ritual, precise, sharp, unfazed. Thing crawled up from her shoulder to perch atop it like a raven, fingers flexing idly as he scanned the tree-line. Tyler walked beside her, shirtless for a moment longer as he adjusted the sleeves of his colonial outfit. "You braid fast," he said, half smiling. "Practice," Wednesday replied, her fingers never pausing. "My pigtails are my armor. I don't like being exposed." Just as she finished tying the last ribbon around the end of her braid, a twig snapped off the path behind them. They didn't stop walking, but things suddenly went stiff. His fingers froze, pointing subtly at a thicket of brush 20 paces away. A man crouched low behind the foliage, dressed in Jericho's simple farm garb, a normie scout. He'd followed the smoke trail from the hills, curious about what the outcasts were cooking. What he saw instead froze the blood in his veins. The girl, the black dress, the pale face, the sentient, disembodied hand roosting on her shoulder like a living omen. His breath hitched in his throat. "That's her," he whispered to himself, backing away slowly. "That's the witch." He ran, feet pounding over pine needles, nearly tripping over roots, until Jericho's town gates came into view. He burst into the meeting hall where Joseph Crackstone was hunched over maps with 2 elders and a constable. "I saw her," he gasped, pointing wildly. "The witch. The one the witness described, she's real. I saw her myself just now in the woods." Crackstone's cold eyes flicked up. "Slow down, boy. What did you see exactly?" The scout's voice shook. "She was walking with a boy. She had black hair and braids, just like the woman described. Pale as bone. And there was a hand. A severed hand. Sitting on her shoulder. Moving. Like it was alive." There was a beat of silence. The constable paled. One of the elders crossed himself. Joseph Crackstone stood slowly. The one who killed 12 men with her bare hands, the witch with the devil's mark. She didn't see me, the scout added quickly. I swear it. I hid. Crackstone narrowed his eyes. Good. Then she doesn't know she's been found. He rolled up the map slowly and tapped it with 2 fingers. We don't confront her in the open. Not with the boy beside her, not with the others nearby. We wait. Watch. She will separate from the pack eventually. Another elder, a hard-jawed man with graying hair, leaned forward. What's the plan then? We spy, Crackstone said. Until the witch is alone. Then we strike, bind her hands, gag her mouth, and drag her to judgment before she breathes her next curse. Should we take the boy too? Someone asked. No. He's not the one the witness described. He's just a companion. We don't draw more attention than necessary. Crackstone turned toward the door, the firelight flickering against his Puritan collar. Soon, he whispered, the devil's daughter will kneel before the fire. And Jericho will be clean once more. Meanwhile, back at the hideout, Wednesday was burning the midnight oil, her eyes scanning the pages of the spell book in a desperate search for a way home. Chapter 8. Weeks passed, and the weight of the situation grew heavier. Tyler grew more anxious by the day, pacing the corners of the common room like a caged animal. Thing perched on Wednesday's shoulder, watching him with a twitchy sort of concern. The spellbook lay open on Wednesday's lap, its pages crinkled and worn from how often she flipped through them. By now, she'd read it dozens of times. Still, it offered no solution. There's nothing, she muttered under her breath. No spell. No sign. Nothing useful. Tyler exhaled sharply and slammed his palm against the bench. A few of the children nearby jumped. So what now? We just wait? Hope something magically fixes itself. Wednesday didn't answer. She didn't flinch, didn't even blink. For the first time, the outcasts heard Tyler raise his voice at her and saw her say nothing in return. Marcus, the quiet vampire, wandered over with a concerned look. Is everything okay? Tyler immediately deflected. We're just talking about school. School? One of the Gorgon mothers asked curiously. What school? Wednesday closed the spellbook with a sigh and said calmly, nothing important. Just that we've been gone a long time. We're starting to worry we'll fall behind. Another werewolf mother tilted her head. What kind of school do you go to? Wednesday's tone shifted, becoming more composed. It's a private boarding school. For people like us. The room grew quieter, more attentive. You mean there's a place just for outcasts? Asked a young boy with twitching wings. Thing tapped a finger on her shoulder and signed something quickly. Wednesday glanced at him, gave a small nod, then spoke. He says maybe it wouldn't hurt to tell you. She cleared her throat. It's called Nevermore Academy. A school built specifically for outcasts. With dorms, teachers, fencing halls, greenhouses, libraries, all hidden in the woods near a small town. Goody Addams squinted. Is that where you two met? Tyler answered before Wednesday could. Kind of. We didn't always get along, but it grew on us. Why would your family send you there? Another mother asked. Wednesday shrugged. Because they thought it was the only place where we'd be safe and understood. What do they teach you? Marcus asked, now visibly interested. Wednesday listed them off with measured clarity. Literature, math, science, fencing, herbology, botany, music, a bit of alchemy. Classes taught by outcasts for outcasts. The room buzzed with quiet awe. The younger children leaned in closer, wide-eyed. Can we go there someday? Asked a little witch girl, tugging her mother's sleeve. Wednesday hesitated, then replied gently, maybe. One day, when the world is ready for it. The crowd murmured thoughtfully, moved by the idea, by the hope. Goody Addams didn't speak. She just watched Tyler and Wednesday with narrowed eyes. Quiet. Analytical. She didn't voice her suspicions. Not yet. One of the younger children, wide-eyed and curious, tugged on Wednesday's sleeve during their break in the common room. Can you show us what your school looks like? Thing perked up from his perch on her shoulder. Without missing a beat, he leapt down, scurried across the table, and yanked open the nearest drawer, pulling out a large sheet of parchment and a piece of charcoal. "Traitor," Wednesday muttered under her breath, though her eyes softened slightly. "I don't know every corner of it," she warned. "Nevermore is massive. But I'll map what I remember." Everyone gathered around as she sat cross-legged on the floor, parchment spread before her. She started with the grand Gothic exterior, the towering spires, the iron gates, and the eerie silhouette of the forest that loomed behind the school. Then came the floor plan, the central quad, the dormitories, the conservatory, and the hidden library she'd once stumbled upon after curfew. She didn't speak much while she sketched, but the children watched with awe as the world of Nevermore took shape before their eyes. The next morning, as breakfast embers still glowed in the hearth, one of the mothers approached Wednesday, a hesitant smile on her face. "Would you consider teaching the little one something?" she asked. "Reading, writing, maybe some numbers?" Wednesday blinked at her. "I'm not a teacher." "No," Tyler said from across the room, leaning back on a wooden bench. "But you're a good tutor. Remember? You helped me pass that calculus exam." Wednesday narrowed her eyes. "Out of pity." "Still passed," he shot back with a smirk. Grudgingly, Wednesday agreed. That's how she found herself, chalk in hand, standing at a worn slate board, with a mismatched group of outcast children seated cross-legged before her. She started with the alphabet, drilling vowels and consonants. Then came simple arithmetic, reading comprehension, and penmanship exercises on scraps of parchment. Tyler occasionally chimed in, helping explain a tricky concept or scribbling goofy examples in the margins to make the kids laugh. To Wednesday's surprise, the children didn't just listen, they lit up. Every letter mastered, every word read out loud with shaky confidence, sparked something in them. And despite herself, Wednesday didn't hate it. One afternoon, during their lesson in the common room, a little girl raised her hand and asked curiously, "Miss Wednesday, why are you named Wednesday after a day?" Everyone turned to listen, children, mothers, even a few of the older outcasts lounging near the hearth. Wednesday looked up from the lesson, setting down her chalk with care. "My mother named me after a poem," she said. "It's supposed to predict a child's nature based on the day of the week they were born." "Does it really work?" a boy asked, skeptical. Wednesday's face remained unreadable. "You tell me." At their urging, she recited the poem. "Monday's child is fair of face. Tuesday's child is full of grace. Wednesday's child is full of woe. Thursday's child has far to go. Friday's child is loving and giving. Saturday's child works hard for a living. And the child that is born on the Sabbath day is bonny and blithe and good and gay." The children mulled it over. One gasped, "Wednesday's child is full of woe." "That's really you." The werewolf mother chuckled. "I'd say that fits like a glove." "Perfectly grim," another murmured. Even Goody glanced up, her expression thoughtful. "It's more than fitting. A name is a powerful thing when chosen right." Wednesday tilted her head, her voice dry. "Ironic, then, that I wasn't actually born on a Wednesday." Gasps rippled through the room. "You weren't?" one of the kids asked. "No. I was born on a Friday the 13th. But Friday's child is loving and giving," someone quoted, confused. "She didn't like that line," Wednesday replied. "So she named me Wednesday anyway." Tyler smirked. "Of course she did." Thing signed something from the corner, and Tyler translated aloud, "Tell them your full name." Wednesday sighed. "Wednesday Friday Addams." "Wait, your name is Friday?" "It's my middle name." "She kept it there like a shadow," Wednesday said, returning to the board. "Now let's move on. The alphabet won't teach itself." The town was small, just a few hundred people, but its market square buzzed with life. Merchants shouted from wooden stalls, their tables overflowing with apples, dried herbs, linen, and pottery. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the dust in the air. Freshly churned butter. 2 coins for a jar, a woman cried as she waved at passing townsfolk. Children's laughter echoed down the street. A little boy ran past Tyler with a wooden sword, chasing another who wore a paper crown. "I'll get you, pirate. You'll have to catch me first, King Timothy." The shapeshifter beside Tyler pulled her scarf tighter over her head. Her amber eyes followed the children with quiet bitterness. "They run free under the sun," she said, voice low. "Ours are locked underground like vermin." Tyler glanced at her, unsure what to say. He remembered the last time an outcast child wandered too close to town. The child hadn't even done anything, just picked berries from a bush. And yet, grown normie men had dragged him off by the arms, shouting curses, calling him a creature, a cursed thing. He sighed. "What's the plan, then?" he asked, keeping his voice just above a whisper. Are you going to start targeting their kids now?" The shapeshifter shot him a sharp look. "No, of course not. That would only prove their lies true." She paused, glancing at a vendor handing a girl a woven basket of figs. "They already say we steal children. Eat them. Curse them in the cradle. They call us monsters. We don't need to give them more fuel." Tyler nodded slowly, but guilt twisted in his stomach. He kept his eyes down, moving past a woman selling wool. A normie merchant gave him a long look. "You new around here, son?" the man asked, squinting suspiciously. Tyler faked a half smile. "Just passing through." The man grunted. "Well, watch your pockets. There's been rumors of changelings and witches prowling the roads." "Right," Tyler murmured. The shapeshifter tugged at his sleeve, and they moved on. As they passed a row of barrels, a young normie girl pointed at them and whispered to her mother, "Mama, that lady looks funny." "Hush," the mother hissed, pulling her daughter close. "Don't look at her." Eyes forward. Tyler's chest tightened. All this time living among the outcasts, hiding his true identity, he had begun to understand their pain more intimately than ever before. He had been afraid at first, afraid of what they'd do if they knew he was a normie. But after weeks in their hideout, teaching their children how to read, helping them with sums and stories, they felt less like the other and more like family. He remembered how the youngest, a boy with small horns, cried when he first spelled his name correctly. How a werewolf girl clung to Wednesday's skirt and asked if she could grow up to be a teacher too. They weren't monsters. They were just kids. And even if the world refused to see it, Tyler did. He looked back toward the marketplace, where normie children danced in the sunlight. A boy tripped, scraped his knee, and was immediately scooped into his father's arms. That kind of safety. That kind of love. He wanted it for the outcasts too. Someday, but deep down he knew it would take at least 400 years to mellow out their hatred. While Tyler was out gathering supplies with a shapeshifter, Wednesday and Thing wandered through the deep forest surrounding the hideout. They were collecting ring herbs and poisonous plants for her next herbology lesson with the outcast children. The late afternoon light filtered green through the leaves, casting eerie shadows that suited her mood. A young wolf girl with messy hair and sharp amber eyes crept up behind her. "Do you need help?" she whispered. Without looking up from the basket she held, Wednesday answered, "Find monkshood. Purple. Do not confuse it with larkspur or baneberry. Mistakes are fatal." The girl nodded and darted off through the underbrush. Thing, trailing behind them, scampered across roots and rocks, deftly plucking both edible and poisonous mushrooms. He dropped each one neatly into Wednesday's basket, his judgment almost always correct. But peace doesn't last long in cursed woods. There was a rustle, a sharp snap of twigs. Then a shout. Wednesday turned just in time to see 4 normies emerge from the shadows. One of them gripped the young wolf girl by the hair, a rusted blade pressed against her neck. Her ankles and wrists were bound, and a filthy cloth gag muffled her terrified cries. "Witch," the leader spat. "Arms up." Wednesday slowly straightened, locking eyes with the man. Her expression didn't change, but her voice sliced through the air like ice. "Let her go." Another normie sneered. "Don't forget the demonic hand that's always crawling around her." "Where's the hand?" "Is it in your bag?" the leader demanded. Drop it. Wednesday calmly removed her backpack and kicked it to the side. There. Restrain her, he barked. She raised a brow. Let the girl go first, and I'll promise to leave you only half dead. The man's hands trembled. You let us tie you first, then we'll release her. Wednesday's deadpan didn't waver. Fair trade. She stood still as they tied her wrists and ankles tightly with rough rope. Just as they reached for the gag, it hit her. A hot jolt shot through her spine. Her knees gave way slightly, and her breath caught. A vision. Smoke. Screams. Fire licking at her legs as she was chained to a wooden stake. Around her, normies chanted and threw salt. And then Tyler. But not Tyler. A monster. It started with a sound, a guttural snap. His bones shifted unnaturally. Skin bubbled and tore as coarse fur pushed through in patches. His jaw cracked open wider than humanly possible, revealing 2 rows of uneven, jagged teeth. His eyes, once green, now glowed molten gold, pupils stretched into slits. Veins bulged black beneath his skin as his fingers extended into claws, legs bowing grotesquely as his spine arched backward with a loud crack. In a matter of seconds, the boy was gone, replaced by something monstrous and primal. 7 feet tall. Long, sinewy limbs. Hunched shoulders. Skin like stretched sinew and tar, veined with silver scars and pulsing with rage. The hide let out a blood-curdling roar, somewhere between a wolf and a banshee, and lunged through the flames, ripping through the normies like parchment. But even through the horror, his golden eyes locked onto hers. Desperate. Pained. Still. Tyler. The vision shattered just as the gag was yanked over her mouth. Wednesday fell back to the present with a jerk, stunned by what she had just seen. They shoved her to the ground. The leader threw the wolf girl aside roughly. She hit the earth hard, still bound, her small body trembling. Then they yanked a sack over Wednesday's head. But they made a mistake. They didn't check the girl. They didn't notice Thing, silent and furious, dart from the bushes. He reached the girl and began untying her bindings with practiced speed. Once free, the girl coughed, rubbed her wrists, and looked around in panic. Thing pointed to Wednesday's backpack. She snatched it up and ran. Fast. Toward the hideout. Chapter 9. Tyler and the shapeshifter, Petunia, had just returned from town, their arms laden with supplies, when they saw a crowd gathered near the center of the hideout. Voices were hushed. Fear hung in the air like fog. In the middle of the group was the young wolf girl, dirt-smudged and wide-eyed, clutching Wednesday's backpack. Thing spotted Tyler instantly. His fingers tapped frantically against the tabletop, sharp and rapid like a warning bell. Then he raced toward Tyler, signed so fast it was almost a blur. Tyler's eyes widened as he deciphered the frantic gestures. He'd spent weeks learning Thing's sign language, mostly for Wednesday's sake, but now it came back to him all at once. Wednesday. Kidnapped. What? Tyler breathed. Then louder, firmer. Wednesday was taken? He bolted toward the door, fury rising like bile in his throat. But Marcus, the tall vampire with bloodless skin, and Petunia, her eyes still flickering with leftover glamour from town, stepped in front of him. Are you insane? Petunia snapped, grabbing his arm. You can't just rush in without a plan. Before Tyler could argue, Goody stepped forward, her voice calm but grim. They took her and called her a witch. They're going to burn her at the stake, she said, her face as unreadable as stone. Tyler stared at them in disbelief. Then why are we standing here? We need to move now. When are you going to fight back, when you're all dead? Tyler, Goody started, but he cut her off. No. You keep saying to be careful. To wait. But while you're waiting, they're tying her to a post and lighting the match. After everything she's done for you, you're just going to let her die. His voice cracked, but he pushed through it. You want your children to walk in the sun. You want them in schools. Safe. Laughing. Free. But that's never going to happen if you're too scared to fight for their future. He stepped toward Goody, furious tears stinging his eyes. You look like her, he said, his hands shaking as he grabbed her face. But you're nothing like her. Goody flinched, stunned by the pain behind his words. Tyler released her and turned away. Come on, thing. His voice was low but burning. We're going to find Wednesday. Without waiting for a reply, he strode through the door, things scuttling at his heels. Wednesday's ropes had been replaced with cold, iron shackles. She gave a quiet nod of approval. At least they had the decency to upgrade. The metal bit into her skin, but she barely flinched. Around her, the dimly lit shack reeked of hay, soot, and mildew. Bundles of straw were stacked high, the air thick and dry, a perfect place to burn someone alive. How thoughtful, she mused. If they changed their minds and decided to light the pyre now, they wouldn't have to carry me far. But she didn't panic. Her pulse remained steady. She had seen this moment in a vision, the flames, the fear, the moment Tyler broke through. It wasn't hubris that steadied her. It was certainty. People always had to make a spectacle of things, she thought. They couldn't just quietly murder someone. It had to be a show. The door creaked open. Joseph Crackstone stepped inside, lantern in hand. His eyes locked on her with seething recognition. So, Goody Addams. The witch still lives. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Wednesday said coolly, her voice like a blade in the dark. But I'm not her. I'm much more dangerous. Crackstone's smile was thin. A witness claims you killed a dozen men with your bare hands. They were pathetic, she replied, bored. My little brother has more competence than any of those muscle-bound inbreds you sent after me. His eyes narrowed. What is your name? Addams. Wednesday Addams. You won't be alive much longer, Wednesday Addams. The people want justice for what you've done. Wednesday met his gaze, her face unreadable. And what? You didn't expect retaliation? You think you can burn a room full of peaceful outcasts who came to your meeting house in good faith, and there wouldn't be consequences? Crackstone stepped closer, his shadow stretching over her. I will wipe your kind off the face of the earth, even if it takes centuries. And I'll make sure the world remembers you for what you truly are, she said quietly. A xenophobic, genocidal maniac with a messiah complex and a very punchable face. His jaw clenched. Too bad it won't be your kind writing the history books. Wednesday gave him a small, knowing smile, the kind that made people uneasy. History has a funny way of remembering exactly what it wants to. Crackstone said nothing more. He turned and slammed the door behind him, leaving her in darkness. And still, Wednesday didn't flinch. She knew. Tyler was coming. Wednesday remained poker-faced as they dragged her to the platform. She didn't resist as they shackled her to the thick wooden post at the center, arms bound tightly. Around her, the normies began stacking dry timber and hay, the scent of pitch thick in the air. Joseph Crackstone stepped forward onto the makeshift stage, his voice booming across the town square. Tonight, we bring justice to our fallen brothers, slaughtered in cold blood by the witch before you. She shares the same cursed bloodline as her late sister, Goody Addams. She's not dead, Wednesday interrupted flatly, lifting her voice just enough to cut through his speech like a scalpel. She's very much alive, probably off licking her wounds somewhere. And for the record, she's not my sister. I just look like her. Genetics is one strange magic. Carry on. The crowd stirred uneasily, but Crackstone pressed on, scowling. Let the fire of hell purify this witch's soul. Wednesday burst into a theatrical, maniacal laugh. It was fake, calculated, and chillingly deliberate. Oh, please, she drawled. How can the fire of hell purify me when I'm, what was the phrase again? Lucifer's mistress herself? It's fire from God, not hell. Basic theology, imbecile. If you're going to make a dramatic speech, at least prepare it first. Her voice echoed through the silent square. Even the hidden outcasts watching from the crowd froze. Wednesday looked down at him with an expression so unimpressed it was nearly aristocratic. Let's get this over with. Set me on fire so I can properly curse this town. Crackstone's fury finally cracked. Light it. He dropped his torch into the woodpile. The fire caught instantly. Orange light danced in Wednesday's dark eyes. Damn. Life really loses its flavor when you already know what's going to happen, she muttered under her breath. Smoke curled around her legs. Heat licked up her boots. Normies began chanting, tossing salt and spitting curses. Yet Wednesday didn't scream. She didn't flinch. She locked eyes with Crackstone, unblinking, defiant. That's when she heard it, Tyler's voice, raw and desperate. Wednesday. She turned her head slightly. Tyler was sprinting toward the pyre, face twisted in horror, but the crowd grabbed him mid-run. Fists slammed into him. They called him a freak, a monster. Crackstone smirked. Wednesday met his gaze and smiled. And then she screamed. It was guttural. Ragged. The kind of scream that split through reality. Tyler's body convulsed. At first, it was a low snap in his spine. Then another. His limbs bent at impossible angles. His skin bubbled, tore. Black veins bulged under his skin as his jaw cracked open wide, exposing rows of twisted, serrated teeth. Patches of fur erupted from his arms, his neck, his back. His hands stretched into claws, and his spine arched like a bow ready to snap. His green eyes blazed gold, no longer human. And then the hide stood where Tyler had once been. 7 feet tall, hunched and monstrous, his muscles coiled like springs beneath skin, stretched tight like tar. Glowing veins pulsed beneath scars as old as hate. When he roared, it was a sound that turned blood to ice, an unnatural mix of wolf and banshee. In a blur of motion, he lunged through the fire. Normies screamed. Some tried to flee. Others didn't get the chance. The hide tore through them like parchment, limbs ripping and tossing bodies as if they weighed nothing. Flames reflected in his gold eyes, but they were fixed on her. He barreled toward the stake. One massive hand gripped the wooden post like a matchstick. With a single wrenching motion, he tore it free from the platform, Wednesday still chained to it. She dangled like a doll in his clawed grasp, entirely calm. Using one arm to cradle her against his chest, the hide turned and charged through the firestorm. Normies screamed and scattered as he vanished into the trees, his claws shredding the ones too slow to move. Behind them, the shadows stirred. Goody Addams emerged from the crowd, her eyes glowing with power. One by one, the hidden outcasts revealed themselves, fangs bared, claws unsheathed, shifting into monstrous forms of their own. They descended on the town. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos, Joseph Crackstone slipped away, his fury burning brighter than the fire left behind. But the town would never forget this night. And neither would Wednesday. Once Tyler knew the hide was far enough into the forest, he gently laid the charred post onto the ground. Steam still rose faintly from the blackened wood as he knelt beside it. Clawed hands turned human again. Muscles twisted and shrank. Fur receded. In its place was Tyler, bruised, bleeding, human. He crawled toward Wednesday, trembling, but passed out before his fingers reached the ropes around her wrists. Minutes later, the werewolves arrived. Without a word, they cut Wednesday loose, lifted her and Tyler into their arms, and vanished into the forest, obeying Goody's silent command. Wednesday woke up disoriented. She was in an unfamiliar wooden room, covered in soft quilts she did not recognize. Her black braids were undone, her legs wrapped in neat white bandages. Beneath the thin white tunic, what some might generously call a nightgown, but she would only describe as a glorified t-shirt dress, she discovered with grim distaste that her undergarments were missing. Of course. She sat up slowly, her muscles sore, legs tender with a low, pulsing ache. Judging by the blistering heat she'd endured and how fast the rescue came, she deduced second-degree burns, unpleasant, but not disfiguring. No permanent scars. Pity. She stood on unsteady feet, opened the creaking door, and stepped out into a narrow corridor. The walls were old but well kept. Outside a window, she saw the familiar rooftops of Jericho. Before she could process more, a siren spotted her. The girl dropped the basket she was carrying and ran to Wednesday in a panic, just as Wednesday collapsed into her arms. More outcasts gathered, fussing over her, reaching for her shoulders, trying to help. But Wednesday didn't panic. She never did. "Where is Tyler?" she asked, voice flat, steady. They carried her back inside. Things skittered onto her bed moments later and began signing rapidly. "Tyler's fine. Out doing chores for Goody." Wednesday narrowed her eyes. "You let him do chores while I was unconscious?" Things signed a sheepish shrug. Before she could sit up fully, the door burst open. Tyler rushed in and wrapped his arms around her tightly. His face was flushed, eyes wild with relief. "Thank goodness," he breathed. "You really scared me back there." He kissed her forehead. "I'm fine," she replied evenly, eyes scanning his face. "How about you?" He cupped her cheeks gently. "I'm okay. They told me you were nearly burned alive." Wednesday's expression shifted just slightly. "They told you?" Thing frantically signed behind Tyler's back. "He doesn't remember." "Not before. Not after." "Of course," Wednesday murmured. The transformation. There was a beat of silence. Tyler didn't press. Maybe he sensed it, how something was off, how her mind was already pulling threads no one else could see. She gently pulled her face from his hands. "I should rest," she said softly. Tyler looked like he wanted to argue, but her tone made it clear. She was switching gears. He nodded, squeezed her hand, and left the room. Moments later, Goody entered. "You're lucky," Goody said with a faint smile. "Only minor injuries. No scarring." "Cut the sanctimonious nonsense," Wednesday snapped. She leaned against the wall, arms folded. "You used Tyler and me to settle your vendetta with Crackstone. How long have you known Tyler was an outcast?" Goody tilted her head. "Wednesday. Of course I knew. He was with you. Why else would you keep him close if he wasn't one of us?" She stepped further in. "You thought he was a normie? Really? You and Addams, drawn to someone kind and normal? Come now. You should get to know yourself a little better." Wednesday's eyes darkened. Goody continued. "I applied a strong potion to your burns. No scars, but give it a few more days." "You're welcome. Once you're mobile, you should return to teaching. Tyler's trying, but let's just say, you're the better instructor." She paused in the doorway. "Oh, and we're hosting a town hall meeting soon. We're discussing building our own school. You should attend." "Where are my clothes?" Wednesday asked, her voice flat and surgical. "And more importantly, where are my undergarments?" Goody smiled faintly, as if amused. "Your boots were ruined. Socks singed. The rest was, well, we had to remove them to treat your wounds." She added breezily, "The women were surprised by how small your undergarments were. But don't worry, they'll be returned. Eventually." Wednesday's expression didn't flinch, but her eyes sharpened to a dagger's edge. "Oh," Goody added with mock sweetness. "And do try not to wander outside wearing just your white shift. People might mistake you for someone decent." She shut the door behind her. Wednesday sat back down on the bed, glaring at the door as if willing it to catch fire.